Hello everyone, warm welcome to another YouTube video. Thank you for tuning in. On this video, I'm going to talk about a very important topic which is part of most sessions I do, I'd say, and it's on codependent versus interdependent relationships. Now maybe these words are all new to you, maybe they're not, but what people are typically searching for in relationships, and even if you're not in a relationship, a kind of relationship to strive for is what we call interdependent relationships. Now, if we start with this is the healthy one. I always say, and this is documented too, that it's kind of like a letter H. Okay, for those of you who've done their sessions with me, you're probably very familiar. We probably had this kind of discussion has come up, and the letter H, we can think of it as there's one person on each side, and they're standing up straight. They're two people that they're grounded in their own world. They have we could call it quite a strong sense of their own self-identity, and they have their own foundational needs met. So we can talk about this like sometimes with clients I work with their personal routines, and we look at their pattern around their eating, their sleeping, their exercise, and also importantly self-connection, which is sometimes achieved through therapy sessions, or people just do it themselves through maybe kind of like journaling and just self-exploration work, sometimes meditation. But the idea is that the person in themselves, and people do this in individual therapy, has created so they can stand straight, and then in meeting with the other person, I usually, this is just me talking here, but I usually think the bridge in the middle is words like empathy, words like trust, and building this structure and with the other, and then ideally, we become more than the sum of the two individuals. And this link in terms of the communication would be just what we would call in this stream of psychology they call transactional analysis, just a practice of adult communication. So words like being assertive, being honest, being time appropriate, and just expressing our wants and needs to the other person. And by doing this, the idea is that, well, hopefully the couple, the two people can grow together to new levels. So this is symbolic of an interdependent relationship. So this is the one to strive for, and I'll come back and we'll say more about that, but I just want to give at least some sort of outline first of that's an interdependent relationship, and also this way to get there in terms of building this self foundation, and then after the adult communication with the other. Now, in terms of codependency, you may have heard this word. There's a lot of literature around this in psychology, and Melody Beattie was a main author of codependency. Her book Codependent No More, and one I really loved, it was called Set Yourself Free by Shirley Smith. It was one of the first self-help psychology books I ever read. I think it's a really lovely book about breaking free from codependency. And if we were to use the letter idea again, which I always find useful, we would say this codependency is more where there's an A shape. Okay, so here what would happen is these are two people in it where they don't have the same, each of them doesn't have these same like foundational needs met. They're not really in touch, say, with their own emotional flow, with their own sense of integrity and who they are and what they want. It's more messy. They're kind of leaning, and these routines, typically I find when people are in codependent relationships, and themes like the eating, sleeping, exercise, and self connection, they're often eroded to some degree. They're not, well, say eroded. They're just not. They're not complete. And what we're doing in codependent relationships, we're more getting our needs met. These are more, how can I say, more very like self needs met from the other person. And codependent relationships, we say, well, okay, we say letter A, but it's more like the people are kind of caving in on each other. These are typically characterized by, we could use words like drama, like intensity. And often, when I work with clients, well, in couples and individuals, when people are in a prone to codependent relationships, we really look at how we're going to help them like pull back, and then to work on their own self structures, their own like foundations, and then make a practice of adult communication. So they're just connecting with and yeah, well, just speaking openly, honestly, with integrity to the respective partner, or maybe at least using that as a new practice, a new way of being to maybe create new relationships. Okay, so codependency is very much the one to to move away from. So the way so codependency. I mean, it's a really big word. So maybe if we have a bit of a chat around that, around codependent relationships, and if you feel you may be codependent, again, there's the level of like drama, intensity, and often these can quite often be traced back. There's usually certain childhood patterns fed into this, and it's quite characteristics of families we would classically call dysfunctional, whereas more like the person growing up has more abandoned their needs to be able to fit in with the needs of primary caregivers. And sometimes what we do with this, I say in the therapy session, we become like, we try to, as therapists, we express a lot of empathy and go back kind of like archaeologists and just explore, not looking to blame, some strong emotion could come up, but just look at patterns that occurred, which maybe led to our way of being a certain way. So characteristics here, there may be someone really just an overly taking of responsibility. They've been taught that they have to always put someone else before them, or sometimes people have even almost taken on board a more parenting type role at such a young age, or maybe someone just gets reinforcement as long as mum or dad are happy, that they see this as a good thing, and maybe they want to express themselves in a certain way, but it just gets closed down. And what happens when we become codependent? We say it's like we abandon our more we use that word authentic self or integral self to fit in with the system to get certain needs met. And then what happens, the person who is codependent, that leaves the person open for more going into these kind of A-shaped relationships, because the fact is, in their own foundations, they don't really have a sense of who they are. So therefore, they can't really practice the same adult communication. There's a level whereas they're still, to some degree, there's still a child there acting out, looking to be a certain way to get needs met. And maybe that worked however many years ago, but now in a new relationship, this doesn't work at all. Okay, so there can be this real going back and an exploring of that, and it's from this maybe in a therapy session we look back and explore how we got to have this experience. I think we maybe needed to be a certain way, and then by providing an empathic space in counselling, try to give new reinforcements, for the person, I guess standing up for their own autonomy and their own sense of boundaries and what their vision for life and what it is they want, and again their boundaries, a big word in psychology about what's really okay and what's not okay for them in this relationship and for life in general. So codependency, I mean, it's a huge topic. Again, lots of literature about it you can look into, and if you're watching this and feel like you may have a level of codependency, it can't. Obviously, very happy to have sessions with you. I see people on Zoom and in person. But you may just start with maybe some resources, like I mentioned, Shirley Smith's Set Yourself Free, Melody Beattie, a really big author in this area, and maybe you could just start to ask yourself some questions. Like I always remember in the Shirley Smith's book, she said, just the ability to be able to identify your needs, like identifying what your wants and needs are. And if you just do that and without pressure, maybe if you are to a level codependent, maybe you don't actually know what these are. And that's completely fine, by the way. But that could be a bit of an indicator that that you may have a level of codependency. So that's where, when we're not in touch with just our wants and needs, because I think this is a fundamental part of being human, and it means to some degree we're operating unconsciously. So therefore, these, as we say, dramas, they're acting out in relationships. And what's happening? The drama's acting out. And if we can think of it constructively, this is a sign to saying there's past healing work to do. There's something there that's unresolved. We've somehow been taught that we need to be a certain way for reinforcement, or to be a good boy or good girl or whatever it is. But now it's like we're not even conscious of it. We're just acting it out in this relationship. And as I said, A-shaped relationships, they can get very, very intense. Sometimes we say these codependent relationships, or actually hey, relationships generally, bring up our deepest core issues. So if you are in a relationship, it's just good to feel feel into what I'm saying. Maybe ask yourself these kind of questions, and hopefully, it doesn't mean, if you feel a relationship's got a level of codependency, doesn't mean the relationship has to end, necessarily. But maybe there's just some self work to do for you to maybe pull back a little bit. Maybe a bit of this inner work, like you could start by doing a bit of reading around codependency, and maybe just the thinking about your eating, sleeping, exercise, and self-connection. Maybe just doing a bit of journaling around how you're actually feeling each day and what your thoughts are about the world and your relationship and life, and just see if that can get in a nice a bit of an emotional flow, like you're the one in the driver's seat of your life. And then from there, this idea like pulling back, just this practice of an adult communication about what you want from the other person, and maybe how you'd like the relationship to be. So to do a bit of a recap, we've talked codependency. Okay, so that's characterized by the A shape. This is where, again, there's the foundations won't be solid, not a solid sense of self. There's going to be a level, a big word here, we'll say there's shame. Shame is often a big part of codependency because we've maybe been shamed historically, like we can't express our more authentic self. We're getting our needs met more from the other person, and it's intense, it's caving in. So, and if you're noticing that, we want to help you to do some pulling back, to think about your foundations, your eating, sleeping, exercise, self-connection, and start practicing adult communication. Maybe the reading about codependency, reach out to me or another therapist if maybe there is stuff to work on historically. Maybe this is lighting a few light bulbs for you. I don't know. And then with the idea of moving to be in an interdependent relationship, and that's more like an H. Now, I'll elaborate a bit more on interdependent, so we're ending on a nice note. So the idea with the interdependent is, again, two people with a more grounded sense of self. You can both express your wants and needs. There's adult communication occurring. Importantly, a strong sense of what isn't acceptable for you, and that like coming out. So again, the idea is you're ultimately both becoming more than the sum of the parts. You have a healthy level of of arguing and hopefully growing to new levels of intimacy. And also, there's a part of this too. It's not to be mistaken for codependency, but a part when, in terms of relationships becoming more than the sum of the parts, there may be certain areas whereas things you wouldn't necessarily do if you were a single person, they may be, I give the example of rugby, or we wouldn't ever dream of going to a rugby game. But maybe we're in a relationship with someone and maybe they really like it and they ask you, and without it being a no, you can see how when you do that, there is a more just opening up of the relationship in terms of like you go there, you see your partner really happy, then afterwards you always do like X, Y, and Z together, etc. So it's an interesting here. It's almost like a flip side to codependency, because we don't want it could be mistaken for that, because we're not looking to ever go against our. If something's a real solid no, that means it is just no. That's a boundaries. But here you can kind of tease out just things you're willing to do. If we call it, my coaching teacher called them like investments, and not compromising your integrity, but things you do as an investment, and then you see how the relationship and you both grow together to ultimately becoming more than the sum of the parts, so to speak. Okay, so that's a bit about the distinction between codependency and interdependent relationships. I hope this has given you something of value, and I really wish you all the best. If you have a level of codependency, it's really great just to understand maybe that term, and I think the striving to more interdependent relationships, a healthy relationship with ourselves and then other people, is definitely obviously a universally great thing to do. If you'd like support with this, I've been a counsellor since 2008. I see clients in person from Aviemore Drive, from Highland Park here in Auckland. I also see clients in person, online via Zoom, and individual sessions at a very reasonable rate. I also have an online program called Foundation Builder. Some people like just to have a series of videos and worksheets they can go through. And my company is New Beginnings Therapy, so it's newbeginningstherapy.co.nz. Yeah, if you're liking the videos, my goal is to keep growing this channel and to keep giving, yeah, basically just giving value to you. So feel free to like and subscribe, and if I can help, and yeah, feel free to comment. I'll do my best to reply, with any thoughts, and wish you all the best in creating the best possible relationship with yourself and with others. And I hope to maybe meet you someday. Bye bye.